Welcome, Nicklas. You are the COO of Eater,
Mm-hmm.
FreeTable, and you lead strategy and expansion at Norrlyst.
That's correct.
Thank you so much for coming. We always like to ask how you ended up in the hospitality industry in the first place. You've been with Norrlyst for around 2 years.
Coming up 2 years, yeah. 2 fastest years of my life, probably. Yeah.
Let's get back to that later. But before, you've been out of the industry technically for a little bit, even though you have been working with it.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first experience with the service industry or the hospitality industry?
That's a good question. I did. I was a waiter in high school, bartender and stuff around town. And actually, quite soon after I graduated from CBS, I was working in an office job, which was fine. It was great, but it wasn't a job with a lot of energy to it. So I actually took on an evening job, a moonlight gig
On the side of the
on the
office job?
side of my corporate job, waiting tables at Pluto. Back when it originally opened up 13 years ago.
In Kulbyn, right?
No, that was
Wasn't-
in
oh,
Borgade.
that wasn't,
It was
yeah.
in the city. It was so much fun, and I really loved it. And it was just it was a great experience. Even though I was working 8 to 4, and then hurrying up to go to staff dinner at 4:30, and working until 11, and then going home, catching some sleep, and then doing it all over the next day. I really loved it because it gave me everything that the corporate job didn't. So it was meeting people and learning about hospitality from being part of something that was hugely successful back then, and still is an amazing place. And I have a lot
They have several restaurants, right? Like it's a group. I think.
the Pluto Group is
I was confusing it with Gorilla, which I think is part of that
part of
group,
the
and I
same
think
group.
they are in Kulbyn.
Yeah, that's true. Correct. Yeah. So that was, I guess, my first like real experience. But then, a bit after, which is now, I guess, 10, 12, something like that, years ago, I quit my very corporate job and ventured into food and beverage in a scale up, taking part of the management group there, and there was a food and beverage company, but involved in hospitality as well. And ever since, I've been around working with various positions in food and beverage, hospitality, being a part of management, being a CEO, a board member, investor, even advisor to food and beverage and hospitality companies for the best part of 10 years now. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, and also been involved in so many different aspects of it, right? Different type of companies, different roles. And
Definitely. But always, I guess, evolving business development and actually finding, that extra bit of profit if possible. So really trying to look out for where to find room for improvement and doing it just maybe a little bit differently, and focusing on delivering a great product, because at the end of the day, that's always what's going to win.
that's how you get people to come back.
That's how you get people to come back. But there's more to it than just that. Which I'm sure
If
we're gonna
only
talk
you
about.
could just serve great food, and then everything else will be solved.
Yeah. There
I think it's definitely the start, but we'll
a
have a
great
lot of
beginning.
things to talk about today that will provide more intel about what is more.
Yeah, sure. In Norrlyst, we have this. We tell ourselves this, and let me see if I can translate it correctly. We agree with each other that everything that goes on inside the restaurant is equally important to what goes outside of the restaurant. Nothing more, nothing less. So both sides are equally important to run a successful operation.
Yeah. And when you speak
that's
of
the way we
outside
approach
the
it.
restaurant, what are you referring to?
So, that's all the things that the guests don't see necessarily. So that's sort of the back office of things. That is how efficient you set up your booking system. That's how you operate your POS system. That is how you're working with suppliers and making sure that employees get onboarded the best way possible, and so on, so on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You are active in 3 different roles at the moment.
Yeah.
So before we dive into more detail about the work you're doing at Norrlyst, as well as the other ones, how do you manage or how do you juggle those different jobs?
That's a good question.
I don't.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Every now and then I drop a ball.
Well,
the hesitation is like
the more you do, the more mistakes you'll make. And if you want to make no mistakes at all, you just have to do nothing.
you don't learn anything.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's more or less it kind of the way paves itself, that if something is very urgent, you have to focus on that, and then you do that for a couple of hours, and then you can free up some time to work on stuff on your backlog, which is always there, so never a boring moment. But it's sort of it makes sense.
It fills out itself, basically.
Yeah, it does.
Great. Prior to your talk at Digital Week event here in Denmark a few weeks ago, you wrote a post on LinkedIn stating that filling runs today requires us to understand who your guests are, where they come from, and why they choose you. Can you explain how you gathered this knowledge about guests in the first place, and how you turn that into, let's say, I guess, guest profiles or something like that?
Yeah, sure. Because I think that's quite essential. Actually, to being successful is knowing who your customers are and why did they choose to come sit down at your table and not at another of your colleagues' places around town, because everyone knows that Copenhagen is so spoiled when it comes to restaurants. There are so many good options. So understanding why do people choose you, and who are they, and what can you do in order to steer them your way, so to speak, is a big part of it. If you want to be successful, I guess. So what we do is we take all our customers and divide them into different groups, and say that, so we kind of assume that there will be people walking in from the street, but how many, and what makes them actually walk through the door. So walk-ins, that's just one group. Then you have tourists, that's a whole different group. So how do they find your offering, and what triggers their decision when they're choosing which restaurants to eat at? And you do that with all the different guest types that you can come up with. And then you begin to sort of reverse engineer it and say, okay, what actions can we take to actually trigger the decision making within these different segments? So that's sort of where it all begins. And obviously it's different for whichever restaurant you're trying to take care of, but at the end of the day, it's more or less the same across all the different restaurants that we operate.
Yeah, so you do have some differentiating profiles per restaurant. Like you have Utruk, of course, who has the Michelin star now. Yeah, that's a completely different audience, I guess, and it might also be a little bit easier to get the bookings ahead of time. I don't know how that is for you guys. Maybe you're along with the hype of getting it so fast. I guess that helps.
Definitely getting a Michelin star that helps on your bookings. That's for sure. And breaking a world record in getting it as the fastest restaurant ever, that's not a bad thing either. No.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
And when you're speaking about guest profiles, could you give a few practical examples of what is included in a guest profile for one of your concepts?
Yeah, I can do that. So we try to break it down in as many where we can identify correctly for sure what kind of profile is this. So you would have so a group booking, that would be one. A group booking is that can be a corporate event taking place, a company that is out treating their could be their employees or their clients or whatever event is going on. So that's a group booking that you can assume will have a certain kind of behavior that normally pay a certain amount of price. So you calculate what is the average spent per guest when it comes to a group booking. What is a romantic evening out for a couple? What kind of, how did they end up at your restaurant? What is a tourist? What is a walk-in? And what is to us maybe a little bit different is that we also pay very much attention to the opportunities that lies within giving discounts. So providing vouchers for an experience at our restaurants is a core thing to everything that we do. Working in partnerships with others who provide similar thing to a voucher with a discount, but also running our own voucher company with a newsletter where we promote experiences at our own restaurants. That accounts for a big part of our guests every day. And then you have, all the extras, all the last minutes bookings and so on.
Yeah, the regular bookings,
The
so to
regular
speak.
bookings.
And I found it interesting. So basically, with the guest profiles, you kind of look, okay, we have these different types of guests, of visitors, and you label them based on behavior. Okay, are they one-timers because they're tourists, or are they locals or companies who maybe do it more frequently? And then you basically connect them to an average spend, so to speak. And I guess that's also how you then connect them to your different concepts and look at, okay, this restaurant right here, the average spend is basically a lot higher than at the other one. So these guest profiles maybe don't really fit the bill here. And that's that's a nice approach.
The approach that we take is maybe a little bit, I don't know if it's similar to e-commerce companies, but we do talk about customer acquisition costs. So how much money do we have to spend to get certain kinds of guests in, and what kind of mix do we need to have to run the most efficient and profit optimize.
So you work with CAC payback and everything as well? Or?
All of that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think that's not very common for
lifetime.
restaurants or the hospitality industry. Like it's indeed, you see it a lot more in our segment, or indeed in e-commerce that you work with that. But I think it's great, especially when you also mentioned the vouchers you just spoke about. Of course, there's a cost connected to that because you're willing to give away some profit basically in return for volume.
Yes.
And then it's, at the first glance, I think it's very easy to think, oh, but then I lose money. But on the other hand, you might be able to gain some extra. So how do you go about it with the vouchers? Can you talk a bit more about the approach that you use? Like, is there someone standing outside in the streets giving out vouchers, or how do you do it?
Yeah, no, it's not like that.
That was sarcastic.
It is fully automated and
it's online. Or?
It's online, and it's a lot based on a newsletter that customers in Copenhagen and Greater Copenhagen, they sign up for a newsletter where they twice a week will get a promotion with the opportunity to convert that communication that we send them to a voucher. And what we realized is that there's so many people, they really want to go out and eat more. They really want to experience new restaurants and have this constant, not necessarily need to do so, but they have the urge to take action if you present them with the opportunity to eat at a nice restaurant at a very good price. Sometimes it's like it's too good to be true. Sometimes, right? It's like half price or close to 40% to 50% discount.
But the brain starts working, right? And it starts saying, oh, I can have 2 dinners for the same price. So I get to experience 2 different places. And
Exactly. And then you just give them that final push to actually make the decision that they've probably been wanting to do, like for whatever, long time, ever since they did it the last time, probably.
Yeah, and you're also able to catch people in moments where they are maybe a little bit weaker or like easier to convince because you are working with food. And if person is hungry, person might be more inclined to I don't know how that impacts the decision making, but a similar thing will also work with clothing, right? Certain moments of the year, or like supplements in fitness industry, I think is a prime example. When you're training more, or if you just come from the gym, it will be more impactful to then open your email and see something like that. And I think once you get people in your case, I think probably, I'm curious, maybe it's a great question. Is there a lot of recurring visitors from that newsletter,
Definitely.
I imagine?
Yeah,
because once you start getting into the habit of, here I can experience restaurants at a nice discount.
We have in our customer base, we have people that eat at our restaurants like on a weekly basis. So
and also different ones, or?
Different ones. They want to try all of them.
So when you have those guest profiles, they are the ones that are in the list on the wall.
Yeah,
the Holy Grail.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's amazing. I think it's such a cool strategy, and like you're referring to the other platforms that we spoke about in the beginning, like FreeTable and Eater, right? Which you then
that's
basically leverage at Norrlyst as well, but it's also available for other restaurants, right?
Definitely, yeah. Also available for other restaurants, but yeah, we use them a lot to obviously take care of our own restaurants and provide that offering that we want to give to our customers. Yeah.
Just to give you a free sponsorship.
What
can other restaurants? How can they first of all sign up for it? But what can they also achieve from being on either Eater or FreeTable?
There's a lot to achieve from it. I believe. Actually, when it comes to FreeTable, we don't really give them a choice. we
just do it.
We just do.
Oh yeah, you just look at the booking. As long as they have a booking widget, I guess.
Exactly.
On the website.
Exactly.
And then you just fetch empty tables.
Yeah. We do that, and what we actually do, we're promoting all of restaurants in Copenhagen on FreeTable, not just our own. So we actually do it equally to everyone, and for some restaurants we send them hundreds of bookings each month, and we don't charge them anything for that. What we want to create here is something that is working for the customers. So if you as a customer are looking for your availability on a Friday night, or you're a little bit
can be so demotivating when you look up online. You're like, oh, these ones, they look great, and then you go one by one. Full.
Exactly. You just log on to FreeTable, and then you get the full picture of everything that is actually available. And you can book directly through FreeTable. So and for that we don't ask permission to do that for restaurant. That information is available to everyone. So we don't currently in the setup we have need to be in contact with restaurants to.
So you don't have to sign up. You're just actually there by default as long as you have like some kind of booking widget on your side.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a booking widget, get yourself a booking widget.
I definitely recommend that.
You should definitely do that.
Yeah.
And for Eater, how is that?
So for Eater, it's something that we started mainly to help our own restaurants, but we do take in good friends and people who approach us, and if they have a great offering, then we definitely want to provide that as a service to our customers, and also to operate that side of the business financially, obviously, but it's not something that we actively do a lot. It's more selective, and at the end of the day, what's important to us is finding a system where we can make sure our 20 restaurants run most efficiently.
Yeah, fair enough. I just mentioned the post you wrote. There was one other thing in that post that really stood out to me, and I was like, impressive. And that is that you also mentioned that you aim to have all different Norrlyst locations 85 to 95%, I repeat, 85 to 95% full throughout the entire year. What are you doing to achieve this?
So, yeah, that's true. I think we approach it like this. We we want to do everything that we possibly can to get guests to sit down at our restaurants. So actually, our aim is 100% every day. I mean,
But you sign off for 85 to 95.
Exactly. That's where reality, comes in to the picture. That it's hard to do it, extremely consistently, 100%. I think
You just named the example also, like you don't control walk-ins or like the number of people that end up in front of your door, like whether.
Obviously, you'll always have some no-shows and then so on, so on, so on. But what we do is that we consider a restaurant evening service to be a whole lot of opportunities to get people to sit down, and each time there's a free seat, basically that's a missed opportunity that we didn't succeed in grabbing, basically. And
because the rest of the people are there, the food is there,
the food is there, the staff is there, we've paid the rent
already.
Exactly, and we design everything so that we don't have to forecast and say, okay, it's a Tuesday evening, it's a Sunday evening, whatever. It's a lunch on a Thursday, whatever. We want to set the success criteria to be as close to 100% as possible. And if we don't succeed in filling the restaurant, it's just a missed opportunity. So what we do is that we reverse engineer it and say, okay, what does it take to fill up your restaurant on a Tuesday evening? And what it takes is that you have to not just rely on one stream of guests. You can't rely on purely walk-ins. You have to have bookings in advance. You have to have group bookings. Okay, what does that mean? Then you probably have to advertise that your place is well suited for group bookings, so on, so on. Then you have to track, okay, do we actually get the group bookings? If we do, great. If we don't, what's wrong? Do we have the wrong kind of content? Are we not investing enough?
Is that via paid advertising where you do this mainly, or?
Also, it's a mix on various things like organic and paid in a combination, but altogether it's not just one thing. It's a lot of different things, and it needs to be a mix where if you want to have 90% full restaurant on a Tuesday evening, then you need to do a whole lot of different things. You need to work with partners that can help with a few guests, and of course, going back to the customer acquisition, that comes with a cost. If you want to bring in some people that found you through a gift card provider, then you have to pay the gift card provider a few percentage, sometimes more than you would like to. But if you make the calculations and you look at the unit economics, it's still profitable to get that extra guest in, even though you have to pay your partner to get it.
Yeah, compared to not having them, because the other costs again are already there.
They're already there, and it's also it's everyone wants to dine at a restaurant that is busy. Nobody wants to sit down at a restaurant being the only guest or with just a few other guests. So it creates a way better experience for everybody. The more guests you can have, and you can plan for it, so you can put the exact right amount of staff on, so you're not understaffed, you're not overstaffed, all that. So if you always just assume that you are gonna have a full restaurant and then do whatever it takes to actually succeed in that, that's a different framework.
Yeah, so you, instead of looking how do I schedule my staff optimally, then you rather just say, okay, how can we always have this place full?
Yeah,
I guess
definitely.
you might still have to move staff around a little bit at times if the traffic comes later, or like there's a peak moment in a different hour. But
it's not a lot. I mean, it doesn't happen much. I mean, obviously you have a sick chef or whatever, and then you have to take action or replace them. But it's not something that we do. We work under the assumption that all restaurants will run at full capacity every day. We have this way of approaching it where it's if it's not, then it's a missed opportunity. Then we have to go back and look differently and say, okay, we didn't succeed in catching all the opportunities that we had for this evening. So what can we change for next week?
So you're actively looking back at the days that were less than you hoped for and see, okay, how can we improve that?
Yeah.
And how does it look in general? Like, I guess you're forecasting in advance to get an overview of, okay, how is it looking beforehand based on the expected amount of guests? Can you tell me a bit more about that? About the process and about the data that you're working with?
Yeah, but it really is as simple as how many people can we fit in to the restaurant? We want to flip the table, so we want to have an early seat and a late seat. That goes for lunch. That goes for evening service. So it's 4 times for each table that we need to have people sit down every day throughout all of the days that we're open, and we like to stay open a lot. So we have most of our restaurants are open 7 days a week, 6 days a week, if not, and because like we already talked about, the rent is paid, the light is on, all of these things. So you might as well do whatever you can do to catch the opportunities out there. Yeah, and that's the way that we forecast and say, okay, but it's the forecast is that it's going to be full.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, when you look at the forecast, you do account for some walk-ins and stuff like that, right? But ideally as little as possible then again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of know that 5% of the chairs in the restaurant, that they will come automatically from walk-ins or organic bookings or stuff like that. So we know, okay, if we do nothing, then we'll have this. And it's even more than that. It's not just 5%. But we break it down and say, okay, so how much is given and how much do we need to do actively to reach the close to 100%? And then we go ahead and do it, basically.
Yeah. And what is the time, like when you're looking at it? So let's say we're looking at the next 2 weeks. I guess you're mostly focused on the very short term. Or how does that, like, just trying to get into your state of mind here, the way you guys think about it? Because a lot of bookings arrive rather late, right? Short term?
Yeah, I mean, on average, the average booking on a Copenhagen restaurant is made within 24 hours in 60% of all bookings that happens within 24 hours before the dinner takes place. For us, it's a little bit different, but yeah, we have some basically alarms set up where we know that if 2 weeks from now our book is not 50% full, then we know, okay, then we probably have to do a bit more advertising for this place, and then we probably have to think about, do we send a newsletter or something like that. But the reality is that it's almost never the situation that we haven't planned for it, so it takes care of itself when the evening comes, because the closer you get, the more bookings you will get, and so on. So
quite often it might be a bit more of a false alarm that triggers then as well, or how should I see it?
Maybe. Obviously, if there's a trend, and if we say, okay, for a couple of days in a row, there is not enough people here, that means that then we need to do something about that. Is this restaurant taking part of an offering that we've sent out to enough people? Do we need to send it out to more people? Is it the offering that is something wrong with? Do people not want to come for this experience? Is that no more? Has that trend passed? Do we need to change the menu? So on and so on. But it's mostly working with trends. There will always be outliers that you sort of. I recommend that you don't make decisions based on outliers in general. But obviously, if there's a trend, then you have to take action.
Yeah, and of course you're, especially with the different concepts that you have and the big mailing list, it's rather easy to test how relevant things are, right? Because you can just look at the data from the mails you send out to see and the conversion of it.
It's all based on statistics, right? So that's one thing that you kind of always know what you're going into based on statistics, and we rely on that, and we've set us up to make sure that even when we don't hit it like exactly how we want it to, it's never bad.
As long as you learn from it, like,
and as long as we learn from it, I mean that's the part. We can test different things, and obviously we haven't been around for 6 years without making mistakes or setting up some campaigns that didn't work. But as long as we investigate after and say, okay, so why didn't this work? What did we do that people didn't connect with, and try and change it? Then it's still valuable to us.
Yeah, I just like to go a little bit deeper also into the approach of, let's say you just gave the example, you set up some alarms 2 weeks in advance. It looks like we're a little bit behind on bookings. The main thing I want to go a bit deeper here is to explain it maybe very clearly for people who are not focusing on this at all today, who have a restaurant, who maybe don't use too much of the data. So you're basically saying, okay, 2 weeks in advance, in your case, you might have some automation set up that you get an alarm that says, okay, here it looks like we are minus 50% of full capacity in terms of bookings. Time for action. How does it go from there? Like, what the action, of course, there might be an email or some advertising. How do you decide what to do with the team internally?
I mean, it's a pretty case by case. It depends on what kind of restaurant is it, and
feel free to just take an example if that makes it easier.
If it's, for an example, if it's actually it doesn't happen a lot. That's why it's not.
It's amazing. Yeah,
it is. It's quite a privileged position to be in, to actually having a hard time answering this, because there is just not any alarms going off, because we've set up the system so that we know that when the day arrives, there will be enough guests to reach at least 80 to 90% capacity, at least, and oftentimes even more than that. It's the best scenario that I can think of is that if you have a big group reservation in the same week that cancels a week before, and you have a Saturday evening for a restaurant with room enough for 200 people, and you sort of, then you're back to scratch.
Yeah, you're just empty again because they reserved the entire evening.
Exactly.
Say. Yeah, that's a great example. What do you do?
They just cancel. Yeah. Then you have to realize, okay, which kind of people can we actually trigger to take a decision to come eat with us on a Saturday evening. So you have to look in your segments and your database and say, okay, we have these regulars that we know they like to eat here. Maybe if we provide them with a discount of 25% and explain to them that we had a big cancellation, we would still love to have a great evening on Saturday. Would you like to come in and join us for an evening? We'll give you 25% discount. That would be something that we could do it, but it doesn't happen often.
No, but I do think it is a great way of going about it, because it's also rewarding those regulars again, right?
Again, it is.
So it's a full circle in that sense. Like, you're helping yourself, but you're also kind of making them even closer to you than they already are, because they're like, hey, we have a problem, and we'd love for you to be the solution with a lovely discount. Yeah. I think that's amazing. That makes so much sense.
I think it's within our DNA, and I'm not sure if it sets us apart from a lot of others. I think the same mentality goes for a lot of our colleagues in the industry, but I think that we've designed a system where we can actually take actions. I'm reminded. I want to tell a story about. It's not my story. I heard it from this. It's a marketing guy called Rory Sutherland. He's a British guy. He's a brilliant storyteller, and he tells this story on a podcast, I think, where he's driving down the freeway. He's driving down the freeway somewhere in England, I assume, and he needs gas. And he knows the area quite well, so he knows that he's coming up to a gas station where he can pull in and get gas. He has his wife in the car also, and when they approach the exit, they see that there's no light in the signs outside, so it looks closed. And his wife tells him it's closed. Keep driving. We'll take the next one. But he's kind of insistent. This is not a place that closes down this hour and so on. So he takes the exit, and he walks into the place, and it's fully open. There's no people there, obviously, because the signs weren't.
Yeah, exactly. It looks closed.
It looks closed. And he walks up to the cashier, who just stands there doing nothing. And he asks, "What's going on? Why are there no people here? Where the signs were off and so on?" And he says, "Well, probably just forgot to turn them on." And the moral of the story, I think to me, and I think about it quite often, is that something like that happens all the time. You forget to take action. You forget to do the thing that actually brings in the customers. And we've designed a system for ourselves where we don't reward that, extra that extra effort enough in our work system. But what we do is that we punish when some people do something wrong. So like the cashier at the gas station, if he would have stolen his sneakers that day and was caught on camera, he would have lost his job for sure. But probably he won't lose his job for forgetting to turn on the lights on the freeway. But the cost involved in not turning on the lights are
huge.
It's huge.
But that's a perfect example, right, of how can we avoid it the next time.
I mean, something to us, it's just remembering, remembering to turning on the lights, always remembering to reward that extra effort into doing actions that actually helps the core business, and then having free sneakers so that you don't, the staff don't they don't need to steal the sneakers. The sneakers just there.
Yeah, exactly. Makes a lot of sense. And just out of curiosity, like you just mentioned, basically if we don't focus much booking wise, we'll just go to, let's say, 85, 95%. Is that just organically, or does that also include some work you have been doing in the months beforehand, perhaps already with some offers, or that is just actually
that's the culmination of months' work. That's the combination of obviously also spending a lot of time on creating the best experience that you can.
Of course.
Making sure that the offer is great, that the food is nice, the atmosphere is as good as it's possibly can be, and that the service is just the way it needs to be. And then, doing all these efforts simultaneously that will lead up to being able to trust that you will end up with a full restaurant.
So when you started 2 years ago at Norrlyst, was it already the case that you were at these percentages of like bookings in advance, or is that something that you've been able to like?
We've been improving over the years, but it's been there from the beginning. That would be the one thing that would set the Norrlyst group apart from the rest of the competition. Consistency in that, and making sure that you design whatever you do so that this is actually possible. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, like you did mention it doesn't happen too frequently, but Norrlyst has, was it 20 locations at the moment?
Yeah.
when you, for whatever reason, happen to be in a position that there's maybe 5% on 2 different locations that you would like to fill up, how do you go about it then? Do you just send the separate emails for both locations, or do you make maybe a shared offering? Can you?
Yeah, we would always try to go as narrow as possible and to segment it as close to so staying relevant is extremely important when you do have a group of people in your that's who subscribes to your newsletter. You really need to keep the information as relevant as possible. You cannot, there's a spam issue if you are sending them emails every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Lose interest. So the more relevant information that you can send them and communicate directly to them, even I think that makes it more efficient.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of segmentation in the email list that you have for some data on the types of, again, back to the guest profiles as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you can go a little bit broader with paid advertising and SoMe and so on. That's okay that you have a bigger reach there. But when you want to approach them directly, the better you can segment your audience, the more efficient it is. And it's in everyone's interest that you don't get bombarded with stuff which is not relevant to you.
Yeah, I think it's also good to state in general is that those 2 channels are in that sense also so different, because paid advertising, of course, you will reach people who have already been at your place, but it's not necessarily the main intention. Of course, you also want to reach people who don't know about you, whereas a lot of the people who have been with you, they're already in your mailing list.
Yeah.
And you already have data because they've maybe been there several times. But if you've seen that, this person right here has been at 5 or maybe like at 5 of our restaurants, or a few times at some different ones.
Yeah.
And he never spent over a specific amount. Yeah, then you don't want to send them the offer for the restaurant that is always above that amount.
Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, but I think it's just nice to explain the thinking behind it, because it makes so much sense. And of course, if you just have one restaurant, it's a little bit different. You will always go after the same audience, but there might be some things you can improve on as well when you work with the social media ads, of course, who you're going after.
Yeah, definitely.
In general, for restaurant owners. Oh, sorry.
Lookalike campaigns, all of that, split testing, A/B testing, all of that is something that is within our DNA to work that way, to improve and to learn more and to be efficient, automate flows and set up things that really work with us every day, and can help us, just be a better version of ourselves tomorrow. Definitely. And that's I do understand that that's not something that you do from day one. Wanting to do that, coming into this business or having a few restaurants that don't work with data in that way, that would be, maybe that's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. That's a lot. I don't recommend that. So it's about, getting started and begin with something that you can you can control it, you can manage it, and you can do a great job. And what I always recommend also is that make sure that the whoever person who's doing that finds it extremely funny and interesting to do that task. Because if you don't find it interesting, if you don't find it meaningful to have that as a part of your job, then it's not going to work. So that would be my greatest recommendation.
And what would you recommend to, let's say, I'm a restaurant owner with one location, and I maybe don't have anyone at my disposal who is very intrigued in the data. Maybe the restaurant owner himself is not that intrigued by it, but he would like to spend some more time on it. Would you just say get a good booking system, or find a system that can help you to give you some insights? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a list of things that I could recommend. I would always say that you're welcome to contact me, approach me, and we can have a
we'll
short
leave
conversation.
that in the description, because that is very generous.
Yeah, definitely, always. I mean, there's a lot of things. I would say take a long think about what is it that you want to achieve. because data is only good if you act on it, and whatever whatever decision you come to from the data approach should be acted on in real life and should be something that you want to do. So the first thing that you need to do is decide what is it that you want to achieve. And once you've done that, it's about, when it all comes down to how do you eat an elephant? You need to break it down into pieces where you can say, okay, I can chew on this piece. And then begin seeing how much help can you get from the systems that you use now. Insist on getting help from your booking system, from your POS system, from your payment provider, from your, maybe you use an agency, and maybe it's a good idea to use an agency. Maybe you probably also have a schedule provider that can help you with some forecast. At least they would love to have the conversation about what they can offer, and so on, and try to learn, try to get as much information in if it's something that you genuinely find interesting. If you don't find it interesting, go look for someone who will, and then spend your time on whatever you find interesting. That is I think that should be the rule of thumb, that you need to have a passion for it. If you don't, then it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, I think that's in itself, it's the main thing, right? We spoke about it in the beginning. Like, you do have to, or you do need to find it interesting enough, because otherwise you're not gonna succeed in it. And if you don't want to do it yourself, outsource it in whatever way. And final question, bit of advice for the restaurant owners among us. We're slowly running out of time, but you're also working quite a bit with advertising, with mailing. What would you recommend for like that one or two restaurant owners, like, or with several locations, in term they maybe need some more bookings because they're consistently getting, let's say, to 80%, and they would like to grow to that 90%? Where would you advise them to focus? Would it be paid advertising? Would it building up a mailing list? Both?
The main thing that I would leave them with, and it's not that it's a hot take, but it's probably we can see there are some friction within the industry and a little bit back and forth with different opinions on it. But my best recommendations would be, do not insist on the same price throughout the week. Understand that supply and demand, is determined by whichever price point you put. And I mean, the demand for restaurant experience on a Tuesday evening with an average cost of 750 is just not high enough so that you can fill your restaurant. So maybe if you lower it to, say, 500 and say you would be okay with that, then you would see an increase in guests, and you would still be more profitable than having an empty restaurant. So my recommendation is that accept the fact that prices are a big part of how people choose. It's always an incentive to people if there's a discount, and work with it in a way so you make sure that people understand that this is not because the product is worth less. It's just that, it's Tuesday evening.
I'm willing to spend less on the Tuesday evening. Yeah,
obviously. I mean, a lot of people are, and there are so many different segments and groups of people. There are young people, students. There are whatever, single parents and single income households and elderly people, and so there's so many different kind of people. And having a mix of everyone can actually help you with your occupancy throughout the week. You cannot assume that you are so good at providing a service that you can always always, year in, year out, forever and ever, get full capacity with people paying full price every day of the week, both lunch and dinner. I mean, it's just not possible. But there are other ways. I mean, if you look at aviation and hotels and transportation.
Remember Bjarke mentioning the same thing.
He probably did.
Yeah, but I think it's such an interesting way. And this final question.
Yeah.
If you would think about this, because I fully agree, and I think it's a very good approach. Would you recommend having a completely different weekday menu? Let's say from Monday to Thursday. Would you say try to work with those discounts, offers, to make it intriguing?
Yeah. What I always recommend is make sure not to design the menu in a way that it's obvious to people that this is something that you've inflated to represent a value that is not there. So whatever you do, you can do a lot of different things. You can do a weekday menu if you want to, but make sure that it's good value for money even at full price. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
that
so
it
you don't cut yourself in the fingers when people say, like, I don't want to go there on the weekend and it's too expensive.
I mean, then you might as well close down. Because if you go down that road, then it's just a matter of time before it's over. And it's very obvious to people. People are not stupid.
Unless you're like, all you can eat sushi, then you can get away with it. But if you can, like, it's a completely different segment. But
I think that's a different segment.
Yeah. It's like it's hard to compare. Nicklas, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure, and thank you once again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.